She stood in front of a camera, tears coming, voice breaking, 55 years of marriage behind her, and none of it, not one day of it, preparing her for this moment. Betty Robison said goodbye to her husband James this week, not in private, not quietly. She let people in. She cried on camera. She talked about his final words to her. She described a Mother's Day celebration that none of them knew yet would be one of their last. And in the middle of all of it, through the tears, she said her relationship with God had grown deeper even through the pain. This is that story. James Robison died on May 16, 2026. He was 82 years old. He founded Life Outreach International. He co-hosted the long-running Christian television program Life Today for over 5 decades. He was one of the most recognized figures in American Christian broadcasting. But the version of James Robison that the people closest to him knew best was not the broadcaster or the founder or the televangelist. It was the husband. Betty Robison was beside him for all of it. Not as a supporting figure, not in the background, as a partner, a co-host, a co-builder of everything they created together. They hosted Life Today together. They built Life Outreach International together. They traveled together. They prayed together. They raised their family together. Last week, she sat down in front of a camera and tried to find words for what it means when the person who has been beside you 55 years is suddenly gone. Betty's tribute video was not a polished, produced memorial. It was a woman visibly grieving, speaking honestly about the man she loved and the life they built. She broke down in tears. She didn't hide it. She didn't edit herself into composure. And what she said through the tears revealed something about who James Robison was in private that decades of television ministry never fully captured. She spoke about his final words to her, about a tender, private message he shared with her shortly before his passing. During a Mother's Day and birthday celebration, he praised her. He told her she embodied Christ-likeness, the highest compliment in their shared faith tradition. He told her she was the ultimate foundation of their family. He expressed gratitude for the years they had built together. Those are not the words of a man who knew he was dying. They are the words of a man who, in a moment of celebration, wanted the person beside him to know exactly what she meant to him. And then he was gone. The gap between that Mother's Day message and his death on May 16 is a detail that lands quietly and heavily. He said thank you. He said she was the foundation. He said he was grateful, and she is the one left holding those words now. 25 years of marriage is not an abstraction. It is a specific, textured, lived thing. It is the accumulation of ordinary mornings and difficult seasons and decades of shared purpose. For James and Betty Robison, that shared purpose was unusually public. They co-hosted Life Today, a Christian television program that ran for over 5 decades. They appeared together on screen regularly for longer than most marriages last. It means the dynamic of their partnership was visible to millions of people. Viewers who watched them interact week after week, year after year, had a window, partial and curated, but real, into how they functioned together. And what those viewers consistently saw was something that the tribute responses confirm: a genuine partnership, not a television arrangement, not a professional pairing that happened to be married. 2 people who were, by all accounts, actually doing this together. Humanitarian work, the clean water wells drilled across Africa, the feeding programs reaching children in some of the world's poorest communities was built on that foundation. Both of them committed to it. Both of them using the platform they had built together to do something concrete in the world. Betty was not the person behind the ministry. She was part of the ministry. That distinction matters. Now she is the one who has to figure out what comes next, both personally and institutionally, without the person she built it all with. Here is a detail from Betty's tribute that is worth pausing on. She said that her relationship with God had grown deeper even through the pain of losing James. That is a specific theological claim, and it is one that, in the context of genuine grief rather than performed faith, carries real weight. Because the easy thing, the thing that would be more comfortable to say, would be that faith makes grief easier, that belief provides comfort that smooths the edges of loss. Betty did not say that. She said deeper, not easier, deeper. That distinction matters to anyone who has tried to hold faith and grief at the same time and found that they do not cancel each other out, that the pain is real and the faith is real, and both of them exist fully, simultaneously, without resolving into something tidier. She was crying when she said it. The faith and the tears were in the same frame. That is not a performance of spiritual wellness. That is someone telling the truth about what grief and faith actually look like when they occupy the same moment. Her children, Randy and Rhonda, her grandchildren, and the broader Life Outreach community are walking through that same terrain alongside her. The family has stated that Life Outreach International's mission will continue, that the humanitarian work James and Betty built will go on in his honor. But the institutional continuity and the personal grief are 2 different things, and Betty's video was about the second one. There is a specific quality to the grief of someone who loses a partner they worked alongside every day. Most people lose a spouse and lose a person. Betty Robison lost was a person and a partner and a co-worker and a co-host and the person who sat across from her in a television studio for 50 years. Every context in which she moved, ministry, broadcasting, family, faith was shared with James. There is no part of her daily life that his absence doesn't touch. Christian leaders and viewers around the world have poured in tributes and prayers since his death was announced. The response reflects the reach of what James and Betty built together, not just in the United States, but globally, in the communities where Life Outreach's humanitarian work has been active. People in those communities knew James Robison's name. Some of them have clean water because of what he and Betty built. The scale of the response is a measure of the scale of what she is grieving, not just a husband, an entire shared world, and she let people see her grief. On camera, in tears, honestly. That is its own kind of courage, especially for someone who has spent decades presenting themselves publicly as a source of faith and steadiness. She let people see the cost. The questions that remain open are both personal and institutional. For Betty personally, what does life look like after 55 years of partnership that was also a vocation? And how does someone rebuild a daily existence when the person who shared every dimension of it is gone? Those are not questions with quick answers. They unfold over months and years, and Betty's willingness to be publicly honest about the beginning of that process through the farewell video suggests she may continue to share that journey with the people who have followed their ministry for decades. Life Outreach International, the transition of leadership, the continuation of the humanitarian programs, the long-term future of a ministry built by a specific founding partnership, those are institutional questions that will take time to answer properly. The family has expressed commitment to continuing the mission. What that looks like in practice, who leads, how the work is funded, whether the television presence continues, remains to be seen. James Robison spent his final decades building something that was meant to outlast him. Whether it does will depend on the people he left behind. Starting with Betty, there is a version of a televangelist death that gets processed entirely as an institutional event. The legacy statement, the successor announcement, the tribute reel, the ministry continues. Betty Robison's farewell video refused that version. She cried, she talked about Mother's Day. She shared the private words her husband said to her when he didn't know they would be among his last. She said her faith had grown deeper, not easier, the pain. She gave people the human version, the real version. And in doing so, she honored something about the marriage that 55 years and 5 decades of television co-hosting only partially captured. This was a real partnership, a real love, a real life built by 2 specific people who were not interchangeable with any other. James Robison died on May 16, 2026. He told Betty she was the foundation, she is still standing, and that, in the vocabulary of the faith they built everything on, is its own kind of testimony. Let me know what you think.